Chapter 4. Spooked. When the dance concluded, Nancy and Pop walked outdoors together. She said to him, "Please tell me the rest of the phone message that worried you." "All right," he said. "The man who called threatened not only you, but everyone else who dared to interfere with his plans." "What are his plans?" Nancy asked. She was not disturbed because she had been threatened many times before. The young sleuth figured that such people are usually cowards and invariably defeat their own purposes. Pop Hamilton said the man had not told him anything else. In fact, he hung up as soon as he had delivered his message. "Was his voice familiar to you?" Nancy inquired. Pop shook his head. It was rather deep. He spoke crisply and unpleasantly. "I don't know anyone like that." He patted Nancy on the shoulder. "I hope you won't worry about this, but promise me you will always have someone with you in case this stranger comes to bother you." Nancy agreed, and the two walked back into the mess hall. In a moment, Nancy was claimed by another cowboy dancer and spent the rest of the evening having a very good time with lots of jokes and laughter. Later, she, Bess, and George prepared for bed. Nancy told the cousins what Pop had said and warned them to be very careful and never to travel alone anywhere. George's eyes had a faraway look. "There's something really big going on in connection with this mystery," she said. Bess was alarmed. "Oh, Nancy, why can't you ever solve a mystery without all sorts of threats and harrowing dangers to you, George, and me?" Nancy did not reply. She merely smiled and brushed her hair vigorously. The next morning she was up early and off on horseback to the Excello Flying School. It was not until she reached a lonely stretch of road that Nancy remembered her promise to Pop never to travel alone. Now, however, there was no one in sight. She felt perfectly safe. Suddenly, another horseman appeared around a curve. Nancy would meet him head-on. Would he be friendly or try to harm her? The young sleuth's pulse began to throb. Should she race back to the ranch or take a chance? Nancy remembered that while flying, she had seen an old road to the school. It led up over a hill. Quickly, she pulled on her right rein and galloped across a field, then up the slope and among some trees. Now she was not visible to the other rider. What a relief, she thought. Nancy rode down the far side of the slope within sight of the airfield. She urged her pony on, and within a short time reached the school. Bruce was not there yet. The manager saw her and called Nancy to the desk. "Bruce telephoned," he explained, "and told me he would be late. He said if you wanted to use another instructor today, it would be okay." "Thank you," Nancy said, and went over to sit down on a bench. She would wait for Bruce. At this moment, another pilot came up to her. He talked so fast, running all his words together, that she had no idea what he was saying. "Sorry, but I didn't understand you," she interrupted. Once more, he spouted off at a dizzy speed. "I'm Hal Calkin. I said morning, hiya. Swell day for flying. How y'all fixed for time? Let me see your logbook." Although it was hopeless to follow everything, she figured out that Hal Calkin was his name. "Thanks very much, Hal," she said. "I'm waiting for Bruce." Nancy concluded that even though Hal might be a good pilot, he would be an impossible instructor to understand. She had better not try it at this point in her lessons. The affable Hal grinned and said, "It's okay. Well, good luck." After he moved off, Nancy tried to recall what Hal had said. She had just about unscrambled his remarks. "Swell day for flying. How are you fixed for time? Let me see your logbook," when Bruce walked in. He hurried over to her. "I'm so glad you waited. Well, I'm ready if you are." "All set," she replied as they walked out to the airfield. The morning's lesson was to practice steep turns and accelerated stalls. When they reached a wide-open area, Nancy took the plane up to 3,500 feet. Now she did a series of steep spirals. "Very well done," said Bruce. "I think I'll try you on some S-turns." He pointed to a straight, narrow river some distance ahead. "Use that as your pattern. Where's the wind now?" "From the east," she replied. Bruce instructed her to cross the stream. "When you reach the other side, your steepest bank will be required to take you on the first right turn of your S. As you come back across the water, this will be the shallowest part of your second bank. You'll make a wide curve, then cross the stream again." "And make another steep bank?" Nancy asked. Bruce nodded and with a grin said, "How many times do you think you could do this without becoming dizzy?" Nancy chuckled. "What's the record?" Bruce remarked that he would not dare tell her because she would try to beat it. Smiling, he changed the subject. "We'll practice some 8s around." Bruce explained to his student that the maneuver was performed at a fairly low altitude. She was to select 2 prominent points on the ground below, spaced about 2 or 3 miles apart. In addition to this, her instructor added, "The axis between your selected ground points must be at a right angle to the wind." "The wind is from the north," Nancy observed. "That means my ground points should be east and west." "Good," Bruce said. "Now the purpose of this maneuver is to teach you how to maintain a fixed radius, or distance, from your selected ground points while turning around them." "I read about 8s around in my textbook," Nancy said. "If we could see our shadow moving across the ground, we'd see our plane making figure 8s between the 2 ground points." Bruce was pleased. "You catch on fast," he told his student. "And remember, shallow out the bank of your turn when flying upwind around the ground point, and steepen the bank when turning downwind." Nancy completed the maneuver with a good score. She continued the turns until Bruce decided to call it a day. On the way back to Excello, Nancy flew directly over the site where Roger Payne's plane had landed, then mysteriously left again. Apparently, the craft had been taken away forever. But where was Roger Payne? Nancy went on. Reaching the flying school's airstrip, the girl pilot came in for a smooth 3-point landing. "I've certainly enjoyed my lesson today," she said. "Thanks a lot. I came over on a pony, so I won't need a ride back." Fortunately, there were cars and other horsemen on the road as Nancy returned to the ranch, so she was not worried about anyone stopping her. When she arrived, the young flyer went to the girl's bedroom. Both of her friends were there. Bess said, "Oh, Nancy, you'll have to join us day after tomorrow. We have marvelous plans for you." "What's up?" Nancy asked. Bess told her that she had arranged with Pop Hamilton for an all-night pack trip on horseback. "Pop will go with us along with Chuck and Range Cooper." She giggled. Range's real name is Wilfred, but he doesn't like it. Someone nicknamed him Range. He loves to be out on the range, rounding up strays. George took up the story. "First, we'll go to the place where you found the parachute and make another search for Major and a shootist. Pop thinks the state police might have overlooked some clue. He's determined to find his prize pony. Then we'll go on to the landing site of Roger Payne's plane." Nancy said the trip sounded wonderful to her. "I can take a double lesson tomorrow to make up for the time we'll be away." She phoned Bruce to ask if this were possible, and he was happy to change her schedule. The next morning, when Nancy and Bruce were airborne, she asked if they might go beyond the mystery spot during her lesson. "Let's see if we can possibly find out anything to help explain the disappearance of Roger Payne," she pleaded. Nancy said she was more convinced than ever that there had been some kind of foul play, with a very good chance the vanished pilot had been hidden in this region. "Maybe Roger Payne is being held captive inside the Great Cloud," Bruce commented with a smile. The young detective, who had been considering every angle of the case, surprised him by saying, I thought of that too, and called a climatologist at the state university. Bruce's eyes opened wide. You told him you thought a man was trapped in a cloud? He asked in amazement. You don't really think that's possible, do you? Nancy smiled when her instructor chuckled. I wanted to know what, if any, investigation of the cloud had been done, she explained. Bruce became serious again. A great deal, I imagine. You're absolutely correct. The climatology department has thoroughly examined the cloud on 2 occasions. Apparently, it is nothing more than a vapory mass protected by surrounding mountains, just as you told me. Bruce admired Nancy's clear thinking and concluded she would make an excellent pilot. As she flew the plane, he requested her to go through various maneuvers. Only once did she make a bad mistake. Feeling a bit overconfident, Nancy decided to show Bruce her mastery of steep turns. Rolling into a tight spiral, she applied top rudder to prevent the nose of the plane from dropping too rapidly. This served only to aggravate the turn. In an effort to check her descent, Nancy pulled back violently on the stick. Suddenly, the plane snapped over in the opposite direction of the turn and entered a vicious spin. What's happening? Nancy cried out. An over-the-top spin, Bruce shouted. The spin is to the right. Left rudder! Left rudder! Nancy quickly responded to his instructions. The moment the plane stopped spinning, she eased the stick forward and then carefully pulled it back, gradually recovering from the steep dive. It looks as if I've turned out to be a bad student, Nancy sighed. Nonsense, Bruce declared. You followed my instructions without a hitch, but you forgot a very important bit of advice. Go easy. Respect an aircraft, and the aircraft will respect you. Some 20 minutes later, the 2 flyers noted a lone horseman on a narrow trail they had not seen before. Nancy grabbed the binoculars and trained them on the man. He had his back to them and wore a large sombrero that hid his figure from view. But his pony was unmistakably a palomino. Maybe that's Major, Nancy told Bruce. Okay with you if we go down and find out? Bruce scanned the terrain. That area is much too wild to land in. We'd ruin our craft. All right, said Nancy. We won't try to land. Just trail that rider and get a better look at the horse. If it's Major, we can report the rider's location to the police. She flew low. Unfortunately, it spooked the pony. He bolted off into the wild bush, with the man trying his best to bring the palomino under control. It was useless. Running senselessly, the horse was swift as the wind. Let's follow him, Nancy cried out, excited. End of chapter 4.